Well, the House of Representatives did not vote on the short-term funding measure for the federal government this week, but they did pass legislation mandating that any agreement from the World Health Organization must be deemed a treaty, requiring the consent of a supermajority of the Senate. Now, we've discussed this issue a number of times on this program. Now, Congressman Tom Tiffany's bill passed the House last night by a vote of 219 to 199. It now goes to the United States Senate. Before I go to Congressman Aderholt, trying to connect with him, I'm going to go to the Vice President of Policy here at the Family Research Council, Travis Weber, for an update on the WHO and what the prospects look like in the Senate. Travis, thanks for joining us here on Washington Watch today.
Thank you, Tony. Good to be with you.
So the House has sent over a number of pieces of legislation to the Senate, many of them bipartisan. This actually had Democratic support on this bill, but they don't go anywhere. What are the prospects that this now goes over to the Senate?
Yeah, I mean, so, Tony, we should be praying that this passes the Senate. The prospects right now, it'll probably be pretty close because we can expect, possibly some reactive posture from Democrats just because there are a lot of Republicans on this bill. But as you mentioned, it was bipartisan. This should be a bipartisan issue. No American should want to blindly, willingly, and really without due diligence cede our sovereignty to a world governmental body like the WHO. The fact is, the current arrangement between the U.S. and other national governments and the WHO leaves a lot in the dark. There's text being negotiated on a pandemic agreement right now. The subject of this bill by Tom Tiffany would require Senate ratification and treatment of the agreement with the WHO as a treaty, require oversight and proper advice and consent by the Senate as any treaty would be given under our Constitution. But the fact of the matter is we need to know what's in it. And it's still being drafted. Things are being hashed out ever since the WHO, the World Health Assembly, which I went to last May in Geneva. This process is ongoing, and the WHO is driving it towards the end of this year, possibly into next year. So this piece of legislation moving into the Senate is an opportunity for the American people and their leaders to say, we need to know what the United States government is being signed up for.
Right.
This should be a no-brainer.
A final question for you, Travis. As you mentioned, you were over in Geneva when the World Health Organization met to debate this pandemic accord. They couldn't get the consensus, but they're not giving up. They're going to keep doing it until they get it. Is this a precursor to global governance, a one world government? I mean, is that what we see here?
Yeah, so Tony, we see a lot of developments in the direction of global concentration of power. We've seen this at the UN for decades. So why are we talking about this? Well, this agreement, which you and we've been talking about, it takes things a step further in specificity, integrating, linking, requiring, and kind of locking in national governments to what they're calling a pandemic preparation and pandemic treaty, but locking in national governments to a requirement globally to deal with health. And we know health as a topic is not going away. We see it talked about all the time. So certainly this is a step in the wrong direction. And I do think it's fair to say it's a precursor towards more aggressive action at the global level coming down from global power institutions, binding the U.S. and other countries to arrangements that they have no control over. They've given over control to the World Health Organization, whether it concerns health, a pandemic, or some other claim of interest by the global body.
This is certainly unprecedented in what the WHO is trying to grab hold of in terms of power over member states, everything from speech to health care to pandemic preparedness. Travis Weber, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.